All right, what up, Syndicate? John Wetmore here. My buddy Zac Twardowski, who had his baby. For those of y'all that watched last week and realized that Yoda was not Zac, man, appreciate you getting on, dude. We're streaming to like 6,000 insurance agents. I don't know how many are watching at the moment. We'll play it, but just to be super transparent, we had to record it because of travel, so we won't answer questions live like normal. But appreciate you getting on, dude. Zac and I'll give you a quick little intro so y'all know. Some probably know you already do, but those that don't, Zac and I have been working together, dude, I think 5 years now.
Yep.
I came on board at 22, basically ditched medical school to get into life insurance sales, and figured out how to sell a bunch of insurance relatively quick, and started building a team probably a year and a half, 2 years in, something like that. By 26, was able to sell his agency for not a little bit. It was a nice multi-7-figure sale, and sold, I think, his record year about 800 grand in personal sales on his own pen. Built a big team's doing, I don't know, what did y'all do last month? Close to 5 million?
Yeah, like 4.9 million.
Yeah, 5 million in premium, by 600 agents, somewhere in that range. Writing agents, not the fake agents that some people claim, like actually got paid last month. And it's been a fun journey. So we're gonna have him on chat a little bit about what he did and teach you guys some things you can improve on. But appreciate you getting on, of course, dude.
Well, thanks for having me, dude. And as you know, I mean, without you and a lot of the other people that have helped, but definitely never would have gotten where we were. So I appreciate everything you've done for me. And I think the coolest thing you and I have talked about is being able to share what we were able to figure out. Because I think I was figuring out how to do the insurance, and you were figuring out how to coach people and to do insurance the right way, right?
Yeah.
And so we kind of got to figure this out together, and then get to share and cut down the learning curve for other people is the ultimate goal. So I appreciate you letting me get on, and whatever we can do to help today, help other people learn this quicker than we did. I think that's a win. So I appreciate it.
It is our journey now, dude, and I'm having fun doing it together. And a lot of people give me a lot of credit, right? I get all these numbers, and I'm like, dude, I didn't do that. Like, without you, I don't get the numbers I have either. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's the beauty of what we do, is if you do this thing the right way and you do it with people as a joint effort, and you really work together for the greater good, crazy stuff happens, man. And I know we've got that figured out, not only you and I, but as a company, as a whole, as our organization, between us, FL, Integrity, like we've kind of got that part figured out, that concept. And for those of you building, and we'll touch on both, we'll do sales and building stuff today a little bit, dude. But I think if more people would understand at its core, the more they work together to help other people win, the easier it is to build.
Yeah.
Versus so many people are out there just focused on trying to build themselves and kind of create something on their own. And like, I heard, what's his name? Bet David. He explained, like, I always heard the term entrepreneur, right? The first time I ever heard that word intrapreneur was from him. You ever heard that?
Never.
It's like, it's a really cool video that I saw on his, but it's basically like we would consider ourselves an entrepreneur, but he'd say you're intrapreneur because we're inside a system that we just follow. Like, we didn't create any of this. Does that make sense? Not like we invented an IMO concept, or without the structure and Sean and all that stuff, we don't have anything to build. And I thought it was cool, and that's the piece we've done really well. So if you'll give them, dude, I think start out with, obviously you coach a lot of people now, but talk to them about, where I want to go. I want to go sales, but should we do sales or building stuff first? You pick. What do you want to talk about?
I personally think sales first, because there's no building without sales. And I think that we missed that, right?
So let's touch on that then.
Yeah.
Give them some, like, again, 22 dude walking out of college. I don't think you'd ever sold anything before, had you?
No, nothing I would say on a recorded thing. So no.
And there you go, folks. Yeah. Talk to him about what that was like, man. And again, you went from nothing, and when we met, you were like, could barely get a sentence out of your mouth. Like, obviously, a smart dude, but relative to insurance, you didn't. Here's the thing I remember. I'll never forget this. We meet at this event in Charleston. We're at a sales conference. You walk up. Someone asked you a question about, and you always remember the question. I always forget it, but something about how you sold what you sold. And again, it was pretty early, so you weren't killing it at this stage, but you were doing okay. And they were basically asked how they worded it. And your answer is the part I always remember. You were like, man, I just fake it's all I make it, dude. I just keep moving. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And you weren't worried. You were never worried about the detail. And you were always trying to figure out how to get better. But give them from, I mean, how you walked into insurance, dude, and kind of how you went from green to selling 800 grand on your own pen. Talk
Yeah.
about whatever you want.
No, I think, and a lot of it I learned from you and from other people about just making sure to really put the numbers in your favor. But I think focusing on what actually is important, right? And kind of as a newer person or as a manager, understanding what to have your agents focus on. And I think what happens sometimes is you start to get some knowledge in the industry and you know so much stuff and you're like, I know how this IUL, what the participation rates are, and I know about doing infinite and you know all this stuff, right? And then it's so exciting to you and you want to like download it all new agents and then you can't figure out why they're not doing anything. Or as a new agent, you learn all this stuff right away and you're like, how do I use all this, right? And you have to really simplify it down and build the building blocks first and build the base, which is really like learning how to pick up the phone, make an appointment. Whether you're doing, in telesales now, how to pick up the phone, how to go from a phone call into a one call close right away. Like you have to learn how to do the very basic part, sell a final expense policy, sell a simplified term policy, and you can get the other stuff later. But I think everyone comes in and they're like, I want to learn all this stuff and figure out how to incorporate it all right away. Like, wouldn't it be great to sell an annuity and an IUL and have these great big commissions? But the thing that I think I realized after going down that rabbit hole a little bit is if you don't have the basic skill set down, like the basic being able to have a conversation with someone, look someone in the eyes, ask good questions, be able to move people, learn how to persuade people, just the basics of selling. If you don't have those basic building blocks, when those bigger opportunities come along, then you'll never be able to execute on those either, right? And we're going to talk about recruiting a little bit later, but a lot of people are like, hey, how do I go and recruit a whole company of people that do pest control and get them to sell insurance with me? Or how do I talk to someone who's been in, a different section of the industry and get them to work with my company? And it's like, dude, if you don't do basic recruiting every single day and learn how to take an individual person who's unlicensed and teach them how to do the industry and convince them to work with you and figure out their why and make them move, like you'll never be able to execute on the bigger leverage opportunities. So as a brand new agent, you need to focus on the very, very basics, right? Which is how do I schedule an appointment? How do I go through an in-home presentation? And how do I get as many reps in those as possible and not worry so much about the result early on? And I think that's what you did a really good job of getting the point across is, hey, don't worry about, like, if your goal is to sell $10,000 a week or whatever your goal is, right? Don't worry about that. Worry about and reverse engineer it to where you can make sure you hit that with the activity. And even if you're not good, to make sure you can still hit those numbers. So like for the first year when I was 22, I wrote, like, I think I showed you the plaque the other day. It was funny. It was laying around my office. It was like $406,000, right? And I looked at it and I looked back at our old leaderboards and I had my old my notebook from when I was in the field and my appointment notebook. And what I noticed was I went, because I would go through after every appointment and write like either a check or an X on it, right? And dude, there were a ton of X's on appointments. Like most days I'd have 8 to 10 appointments and I would maybe close 2 or 3 of them. But I just did it all year long where I closed 2 or 3 a day. Literally, if I sat with 5 people, I was closing 2. If I sat with 10, I'd maybe close 3, right? But I just did it long enough. And then I looked at years 2 and 3 in the business, and it went from 400 to 600 to 800, and the appointment count went down and the close ratio went up. But I didn't try to like learn how to be really good at sales early on. I just was like, let me get enough reps in at this. And like I played lacrosse in college, right? And I remember like drawing parallels to that. I'm like, one of the hardest things is you learn how to play with your right hand. And then if you want to be a Division I athlete, you have to play left-handed too, right? Like you have to develop that skill set early on. But it's not like you don't watch a bunch of videos of someone else playing left-handed. Like you go out there, you grab your stick and you throw a ball against the wall 100 times a day until you finally get good at it, right? And then it becomes like second nature and it becomes like, it feels just like playing with your right hand. And I think that's what people have to understand is you have to just do the mundane, boring stuff enough times until where it becomes second nature, to where when you hear an objection, you don't even have to think about what to say. You just know what to say because you've done it so many times. So I think the mistake that I made early and a lot of people make early is instead of just trying to get enough reps in and then get feedback along the way, is they try to learn all the fancy, like, hey, this is the perfect objection killer. I heard someone say this is objection killer every time. I'm like, that doesn't work. Because like the objection killer, quote unquote, might work 30% of the time. And you'd be better off not knowing the objection killer and running 5 more appointments. because then you're gonna end up closing more anyways, right?
Yeah.
So like what you have to get good at is getting good at setting appointments, right? Getting good at getting yourself appropriate lead flow, which we can touch on that in more detail if you want to later. But I think the important thing to know with that is that will always change, right?
Mhm.
Like from when I started, someone the other day was asking me like, man, do you think it's hard to get leads now? I'm like, dude, I wrote 400 grand off of Facebook final expense leads and 1-year-old mortgage mailers in 2018. Like it's always going to change and evolve, and it's always going to be different. It's never going to be better or worse, but it's always just going to be different. So I think if you're someone who's watching this and you're still only running direct mail leads of some kind, you're setting yourself up for failure. You have to always be evolving as the industry evolves and the way that people market evolves. So I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole, but making sure you're getting really good at getting lead flow, staying on top of what lead flows are evolving, and look at what the top performing people in the industry are doing and make sure to stay, you want to stay at the front of it. You don't want to be the last one to get off of you don't be the last person, in a couple of years still trying to squeeze water from a rock with mortgage protection mailers. Like they're fine. It's good to have them, but if that's all you're running, you're screwed. And I hope that didn't hurt anyone's feelings, right? And then the last thing is after you have good, get good at setting appointments, get really good at getting good lead flow, then it's about figuring out how to have basically just enough confidence to go into a home and tell someone what to do and ask them good questions. And then, the caveat to that would be finding someone who's selling more than you are right now and as much as you want to sell. I was listening to Hormoz the other day. He's like, you should never take advice from anyone who is not making more money than you want to make, obviously, right? And same thing here. Like if you should never take advice from someone who's not sold more than you want to sell and whose net worth is not higher than you want your net worth to be, right? Because that'd be dumb to take advice from people who just throw out stuff just to tell you stuff so they can feel important, right? So I don't know which if you want to dive into those in any more detail at all, but that's kind of
How do you
to get good at selling, right?
there's two things I'm thinking. I'll put them both out and you talk about however you want.
Yeah.
One, some people, like you said about talking to someone that's better. What do you like doing better than you, right?
Yeah.
You never had a fear of that, dude. You called all of us. You just didn't care, So what advice, and obviously you see agents that hesitate to call you when you tell them to. So what advice can you give to some of the people that are out there going like, yeah, but, and they're making the excuses. They're too busy. They're this, whatever. You know what I mean? They aren't reaching up. They're talking to people they're comfortable talking to that aren't helping them. And then the other thing I want to touch on, just so I don't forget it, you can forget it instead. I had someone tell me this week that like they understood the numbers game in theory, but every time they go through and they like get objections or miss sales, like this conversation was in regards to dialing. They were dialing and they weren't making enough phone calls because every time they got an objection, they would get down on themselves and then go watch training to try to figure out how to get better at that particular objection. Like in the moment.
Yeah.
So again, flip a coin, dude. Talk about, those are just two things I want to get out.
Yeah. So the second one, because I was writing it down, I forgot the first one already. But the second one is, I guess they really tie together because it's asking for. So the second one was, and I think you remember this, like I was living in Charleston, South Carolina at the time, and I would drive down to Atlanta probably twice or 3 times a month just to get around everyone. And you all had that big dial room, and a lot of people would come in and find some like weird corner of the office to dial in where no one could hear them, right?
Yeah.
And what I did was I was like, hey, who sells a lot here? And someone would tell me. They'd be like, oh, this guy, Gary does, John, whoever, right? Amy, whoever was in there, they'd be like, this person. And I'd go sit next to them and be like, I'm going to dial here. Just tell me what I'm messing up. Yeah. Right. So I think for the person doing enough reps, it's like going to the gym, getting in shape, right? If you do it one time and then you check the mirror for 6-pack abs, like they're not going to be there. You have to keep doing it over time. And certainly if you have, a diet coach or a trainer or whatever, they can tell you exactly what to do and how to make the process go faster, which kind of ties into your first question. How do you find mentors? And I think if you don't want to take advice from people that are better than you, I think it's like one of two things. Either it's an ego thing because you don't want to be told that you're wrong and you don't want to feel like someone's better than you. And, to kind of address that head on, I think something that was told early on, Mike Hillman, I think said it, is like, you can either be right or you can be rich, right? And there was like one of the simplest adages I've ever heard, but it's something I come back to a lot and I think about all the time, right? And I'm like, that makes so much sense though, because I would much rather be rich than think that my theory on something is right. So my whole goal when I was new was just to have other people tell me what they did to get to where they got to. And I remember thinking this 5 years ago, dude. I'm like, once I get to like where these guys are at, maybe we're doing a couple $100,000 a month or $1 million a month or whatever, then I'll put my own spin on stuff. But let me like just copy what they're doing to a T, because I want to make the type of money they're making. And once I get there, I'll probably have some ideas I can implement.
Yeah.
But dude, I didn't implement a single thing until I got to where we had a pretty substantial business. I didn't try to reinvent anything until I got to there. And my thinking on it was like, they've already proven this model exactly. So as long as I implement exactly what they do, I should have the same result, right? Fair. I mean, there's no reason that I wouldn't, as long as everything they're telling me is truthful. If I do exactly the same thing, I'll have the same result. The only way I could have a different result is if I don't follow it to a T, right? And I guess I just had that belief that I don't think anyone's necessarily better than me at stuff. So I'm like, they can do it, I can do it. It's something that I can figure out too. And I didn't want to reinvent anything because and I remember people like you telling me, or other people telling me like, hey, it took me, 5 years to get from zero to $500,000 a month. But I'm like, I can compact in all the lessons you learned in that 5 years, and I can do it in a year and a half or 2 years, because I can just copy everything you said and I can avoid all the pitfalls that you fell into. So I think that's part of it. And the second part is being uncomfortable, and it's cutting out so dude, I think that every single conversation you have throughout a day has either a positive or a negative influence on your life. I don't really believe there's any neutral conversations, right? So I think if you're talking to someone who's ahead of you in business, you should always be trying to learn. And every time I call someone, you, Sean, I have a few mentors outside of business, other people that I've met through integrity. But every time I'm calling someone who's ahead of me in business, I have an agenda where I'm trying to learn something and gain something from that conversation that I can implement. And then on the other side of it, if I have agents who are not where I'm at in business yet, my goal is to teach them something. But I have no interest in someone else who's doing the same as me, because they can't help me progress any further in business, right? And I think and I did this for the first year I was in business. I talked to everyone who was where I was at. And what happens is if you talk to people who are the same level or slightly below you in business and you're not trying to bring them up, only negativity creeps into that. And then they go like, hey man, I had a no-show. And you're like, oh yeah, me too. Must be the leads. They suck, right? And then everyone has a pity party and it's bad. Whereas you call someone who's ahead of you in business, you go, hey, this is what happened. They go, all right, well, what did you say on the phone? Hey, don't worry about it. Just book more appointment or whatever. They give you the right advice though, because they're further ahead in business than you are. So does that make sense on both those sort of things?
Yeah, I love it, dude. What would you say before we get into the building stuff? Give them something one for clarity.
Mm-hmm.
You and I are both like, I'm obviously a numbers guy. You pay attention to numbers a ton.
Yeah.
And I remember you being hyper focused on what your average agent issues per month. Mm-hmm. And yours has always been like obscenely high.
Yeah.
Like it's the highest in the company. I mean, I think everyone knows that. What are some things besides just straight activity? Because your team definitely understands the activity side. Like no one's confused there. But give them some things with all the agents you've changed, like some specific, what do you see as like some common sales stuff that you change or tweak on agents normally? Like some things that are pretty common.
Yeah. So I think the first thing is, especially if you have any cold market people that you're working with, you have to take cold market. The reason warm market hiring works the best, and we'll get into hiring later, but it's because it's someone they already know, like, and trust you, right? Or at least they know and trust you, even if they don't like you. I have some that didn't like me. I made them some money, so they like me now, I think. But
amen, bro.
Yeah. So, but at least they know and trust you to some degree. Otherwise, they wouldn't work with you. Yeah. So if you have cold market people, the thing where people say like have a bunch of 10, 15-minute interviews and do 10 of the 30 of those a day and just pile people in and let your system do it, doesn't work. I don't know if we're allowed to cuss on this or not, but it doesn't work. I was about to say something else, but it definitely doesn't.
I've been okay with it, bro.
Okay, cool. That's something that people who've never built a business say. Like just plug them into your system and it'll work. That's a lie. You have to take time to get to know people and to develop relationships with people so that when you tell them something, they actually trust what you're saying and they actually go do it, right? So I think that's the first thing. Make sure you have the relationship with your agents, so where if you say something, they actually believe it and they actually will follow it. Yeah. And then the second thing is teaching your agents and getting them to understand that if you're meeting with someone and they filled out a form and you're at their house or you're going to do an appointment over the phone, if you're not assumptive, then they're going to be thrown off. So you have to be confident and assumptive going in there and understand our client base is, and I know I'm speaking to a lot of people, but generally middle America, especially if you're running final expense or general life insurance appointments, older folks. So you have to be assertive and you have to tell them what to do because they've put off doing whatever they need to do to this point in their life. And that's why they are where they are. Right. Mm-hmm. So you have to be assertive. You have to be confident. And I was doing a podcast with my guys and I made this, what's it called? It's like where you use like 4 letters and it has a word for each one. I forget what it is.
Acronym?
Yeah, an acronym. Yeah. Sorry. Like you said, I had a baby and I've slept like 2 hours last night. So.
I had to ask someone to remind me that word last week. Okay. I forgot it too. So I don't feel so bad.
You don't have to know fancy words to get good at this. You just have to do a lot of activity and kick ass all day long. So, but I was like, I came up with it like over a couple of weeks, and then I said it on a podcast with him, and he thought that I made it up on the spot. And I just disclaimer, I'm not making this up on the spot because I'm not that smart. But I remember you told me this. It's a SALE, like how to make a sale, and you have to have structure in your appointment. When you sit down with the client, you have to let them know what you're doing there. A lot of times people on the phone say, hey, my job is to get the information over to you and let you know what you qualify for. So when you get to meet with the client, whether it's over the phone or in person, whatever it is, you have to set the table and reset it properly. Like, hey, my job today is to go through, let you know what you would qualify for, show you some options. When we get to the end, we're going to submit an application. You have to set the appropriate structure so you don't get to the end and they go, oh, thanks for the information, bud, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to set structure. You have to be assumptive. You have to find leverage, right? Which means you have to figure out why the person filled out the form for insurance and uncover the problem to make sure it's large enough to where when you plug in the solution for $100 a month policy, it far outweighs whatever the cost is far outweighed by the benefit and the solution that it solves. And then the last thing is empathy, is making sure that while you're hammering people and asking them all kinds of questions and making them understand how bad of a financial spot they'd be in without insurance, you don't come across like a dick as a salesperson. You actually empathize with them and understand their situation and let them know that, hey, this is great for you to do this for your family. You're a good husband, father, mother, wife, whatever, but empathize with them and be a real human being. Because I think a lot of agents get really good at getting the why out, but they just hammer it home and make the client feel really bad. And they don't use any empathy to let them know you're a real person. You're there to help them. So I think if you can get all 4 of those things down and maybe even look at your presentation and say, hey, which of these am I good at? And make sure that you incorporate the other one, it'll be a game changer for you.
I've never heard you train on that. Funny enough. You told me the story, but I've never heard you deliver it. That's pretty fire, dude. I like it. I'm impressed. You should get
he was like,
you need a sign made.
Yeah, he was like, you came up with that on the spot. I'm like, no, it took me like a month, but
yeah. What made you do that? What made
you? I don't know. I just was like, I gotta have a thing. Like John has a thing. Everyone has a thing.
We need to get you a sign, bro. I love it. Write that one down. Hold on. So SALE, empathy, leverage. I'm going backwards for those of y'all smart people. Hold on. Let me think what the A was. Hold on. Assumptive, right? Mm-hmm. Assumptive. S. What was this S? Hold on. What did you say it was? Shit. Well, it wasn't that.
Oh, shit.
What was it? What was the structure? That's right. Yeah. That's dope. I like that. Structure, assumptive, leverage, empathy. And A. There's people on a lot of different lines of insurance in this group.
Yeah.
That can be used everywhere. Actually, that could be used if you're selling like fish at PetSmart.
Well, dude, the one thing that bothers me a lot is I watch a lot of training because I'm just interested in what other people have to say. And I think for everyone watching training, if you're doing well, the biggest mistake you can make is to take someone else's stuff and try to implement all of it. But there's a lot of stuff out there that's like, here's the 36 steps to close a final expense appointment. Dude, that's bullshit. It doesn't take that much. And people just train on stuff like that to make themselves feel cool, right? And if someone's saying something like that, like, don't do that, because A, you're going to come across like a used car salesman, right? And the client's not going to like you or trust you when you start going through a flip book and 36 reasons and all this crap. Like, oh, look at this, look at these pictures of my family. This is my wife. Like, just be a real person for the love of God, right? Just sit down with them, talk to them, have a real conversation with them, make it about them. Let them talk 67% of the time. You ask good questions and you talk 30-40% of the time. That's it. Don't overcomplicate it. We're not going to win a freaking Nobel Peace Prize for selling insurance. It's pretty easy. But I think a lot of people come across and they want to be this like fancy 3-piece suit salesman. And that doesn't work, not in this industry. And the clients that we meet with will be very turned off by it. So anything you've seen that has more than a couple steps, just throw that away. It doesn't work.
I love it, dude. I love it.
This is me fired up.
I know. Hey, it reminds me of that video where you zipped up. I wish I could like play some of the stuff that's going through my head here. Man, this has been a fun ride. It's
It
cool to
definitely
see where it's been fun. Let's give him a little bit on the building side, dude, for fun.
yeah.
You know, you I mean, hell, how many writing agents last month? What was that? What was the number?
655.
655 agents last month.
Yep.
That's killer, dude. So how do we get there, man? From zero, you know what I mean? Again, building. This dude's recruited a ton of people. Warm market, which if I remember, I took a lot. Like you started, but your friends took a minute to come. Most of them.
I only have like 2 people direct me that were warm market, and
Yeah.
one of them I've known since I was like 6 years old. So
Yeah, I remember you tried early, and again, it worked or whatever.
yeah.
But you built this cold market machine, and you did phenomenal at getting people from other companies that didn't understand the opportunities available to them and get
Mhm.
them to see them.
Yeah.
Like I think you obviously you know that side. So I'd love to hear more about your recruiting because just being real, dude, you're better at recruiting than I am. I mean, I'm sure you know that. Like literally going out finding someone and going like, "Hey, come over here." Like
Yeah.
actually proactive. Like I got really good at working the warm market of cold, but you've like torn up some companies. So I'd love to hear for you to share some just whatever you got on recruiting, dude, and structuring, whatever you want, man. You killed it there.
Yeah. When I think the first thing is too is like I there are companies out there that I think put agents in a really bad spot,
Mhm.
and I definitely will target them all day long, right? Especially captive companies and bad comp stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I honestly met a few agents from there that were in bad financial spots, and we saw it change so much. So a lot of those ones were from a couple people we had come over, and then again just asking them for referrals. But I guess let me take a step back real quick. So like when we said in the beginning, a lot of people talk about recruit, right, all day long, and I think there's no money made in this business unless you're in one of the ones that charges all kind of fees. In which case, I'll try to recruit you. But anyway, I'm just playing. Let me get kicked off this group. Sorry. But no, so I'm totally kidding. I'm not trying to recruit anyone. But like if there's no insurance sold, then there's no revenue generated, right? There's no overrides, there's no bonuses, whatever your company structure is, there's none of it as long as if there's no insurance sold, right? So I think the general kind of framework that we work on is it's like my goal is to find someone or to find a lot of people, see how well they follow instructions, how engaged they are, how quickly they get through stuff, and make it like it's like a big tryout and try to, if I have 10 people all going through licensing, see like which 2 or maybe 3, but like I'm not really looking for more than 3 that stand out above everyone else, and then kind of hone in on those people. And my goal is to take them from a new person. Like I have someone just text me just now at 9 at night. One of the guys I was telling you about that sent me like 40 referrals the other day for people he wants to bring on. He sold like $7,000 his first day in the field, right?
Mhm.
But we have a lot of people going through contracting right now, but I'm like, I like this dude. So I'm going to focus in, hone in on him, make sure he has enough leads, make sure he has set up to succeed. And I want to take 2 or 3 of the people out of all the ones they're going through and focus my time, effort, energy on the people that deserve it the most, help them become people who write 20, 30, 40 grand a month. And then they'll start to like and trust me, right? Because they're making more money than they ever have by a lot. And then I start working through them to recruit all of their warm market too and teach them how to do the same thing. So like my goal is to make someone profitable, because a profitable new person who's excited is the best marketing you could ever have, right?
Yeah.
So take them from new, really excited, make them a ton of money, and then work on recruiting their warm market. And again, it's not weird. It's just going like, hey, John, are you happy you've never been in your life? Yes. You making more money you ever had? Yeah. Hey, do you know anyone else who you think would be a good fit for this and also deserves an opportunity like you have right now? Because I'll do exactly what I did for you to help them get to the same spot you're at right now. So anyone comes to the top of your mind. Oh, absolutely. Okay, cool. Hey, and the other thing is I'll teach you how I interview people. I'll lay you down through a call. I'll show you how I see if they'd be a good fit. I'll teach you how I get them through, pre-licensing, how to get them licensed, how to get them contracted with our carriers, how to get them on the phone, dialing leads. I'll show you how I coach them through all this. And my goal, because you're a stud, obviously, is to teach you how to do the same exact thing I'm doing so you can build your own business and make your own passive income. Does that sound good? Because I think a lot of people are like, hey, you should start recruiting, right? And especially if you're like me, dude, I ask a million questions, as you know, but I'm like, dude, I'm not doing shit unless you tell me why we're doing it. If you tell me why we're doing it, if you're like, hey, we're jumping off this bridge to make $1 million and this is how it's going to happen, I'm like, cool. But if you like jump off the bridge, I'm like, good. Right.
Yeah.
So I like to explain to people like what we're going to do and why, to give them the backstory to it, because once they have the backstory, then they're going to be all in, and I'm making it about how I'm helping them build their business and what value I'm giving to them as opposed to how it benefits me directly. And I think the same thing with recruiting. If you're recruiting, other licensed agents or other people who do solar sales, pest control, whatever, I believe our industry is the best one to make both, really good upfront money and amazing residual income and have the ability to eventually sell your company, right? I don't think there's anywhere else that has the ceiling that life insurance has, right? I think you have to first market why the insurance industry is so great is number one. I think a lot of times people jump right to why their company is so great. And I think that's the third thing that you should touch on, right? I think that one doesn't matter that much because I've met some badass people at some terrible companies that have huge groups and make a ton of money, and their people make money because they're so good, right? So first you want to talk about why the insurance industry is so amazing. Again, upfront commission, renewals, whatever, right? Everyone on here knows that. The second thing is talk about how you can benefit and serve that person and what you're going to do for them and their team and help them make money. So sell yourself and sell what you're good at and how you're going to be of service to them, not about how they can benefit your team. I'm pitching them about how I can help their average agent make more money, how I can help scale their team up, how I can help them build replicatable systems that they can take their agency from, 20 agents to 100 agents as if they follow our systems within a year. I sell myself after that. And the third thing is sell whichever company you're at, what makes your company stand out. But I think a lot of people go straight to this is why my company is so great. And that's the only thing they touch on. And there's no value in that. That's the same thing as an agent. If all you talk about is, hey, I sell this one product, no, they don't care. It doesn't make any difference to them. And they're already not bought in. So you got to sell industry, yourself, and then cherry on top is whatever company you work at and what benefits your company has.
That sounded a lot like sale, bro.
Yep. I got to come up with something. I don't have anything for the recruiting one yet, but I should come up with something.
It's like the same. You basically said the same thing for the most part.
Yeah.
And
it used to annoy me so much when people were like, recruiting and selling are the same. I'm like, that's not true because I suck at recruiting and I'm really good at selling. So they have to be different. But there are a lot of parallels. And what I realize is the biggest difference is that the recruiting is such a long-term delayed gratification thing. You don't see it right away. But Andrew Taylor told me this too. He was like, hey, think about it this way. If you're spending, say, $2,000 a month on some recruiting form, it costs you 24 grand for the year, right? Mm-hmm. If that thing gets you, one agent that you have a 20% override on, right? That writes 30 grand a month, it's paid for forever, right? Like for all of eternity, it's paid for. Or if you get 5 agents, right, that all write 10 grand a month, that thing's doubly paid for forever. But a lot of people look at it, they're like, I spent 2 grand this month on this recruiting thing and I didn't see a return next month. And while I think you should keep close eye on where you're getting results from, if you're getting people through the field that are issuing business, et cetera, you can't look at the same way you look at lead spend to deposits, the same way you look at recruiting sources to, added revenue to your business, because it takes probably 90 days to get any sort of revenue back from it. So you have to be a lot more patient and understand it's a delayed gratification game. And you have to build relationships with cold market people much more than you would with like someone you're going in their house and selling insurance to, because this is a relationship business above and beyond everything else. Yeah.
I thought you were going to say the thing about the houses, the rentals comparison. Tell them that. Say that. Give that one too. I like that one.
I'm trying to remember how he phrased it, but
I think it was 100 grand or something. 100 grand a house.
Yeah, 100 grand.
Isn't that what he was buying houses for? Like 100 grand to make $1,000 or something.
Yeah, that they would net him like $1,500 a month or something like that.
Yeah.
And he was like, if I just spent 100 grand on recruiting, then it brought in like 50 grand a month to my business instead of the 1,500 that it brought in.
That one always wowed me in the sense, like I understood but think about like, dude, there's probably people watching this that are willing to go out there and figure out how to spend or finance a couple $100,000 house, deal with the tenant, plumbing issues, all this stuff to bring in whatever you bring in for rent.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And after a mortgage, the net's like nothing. It's a long-term game. You know what I mean? You got to get a bunch of them to work.
If you get one agent that writes 10 grand a month at a 10% override, that's $750 a month if you have a 9-month advance, right?
Yeah.
If you can get 100 agents writing business, which seems like a lot, but we could probably wrap with this or whatever. If you want to keep going, I'm down to keep going. But in 2020, we were doing like 150 grand a month at the beginning of the year. My goal was, I want to be at $1 million a month by the end of the year. Like, I'm going to take it serious. Like, I'm going to actually try. I'm going to go all in on it.
So 2.5 years ago, dude, you were doing how much?
150 grand a month in January. And I was just like, I think I knew what it took on it. So I bet there's people on here who feel like I felt that time. I knew what it took. And I just was like, man, this can be a lot of work. Do I want to do it? Like I understood what it was going to take. And I wasn't confused that to become really rich, like just growing up around people that had some money. Like I watched my dad wake up at 5 a.m. every day, Monday through Saturday, and get home at 7 p.m. to make 500 grand a year as a doctor. So like I wasn't confused. It took a lot of work. And I had gotten pretty good at making a lot of money doing not much work. So I was like,
Yeah.
all right. But then I was like, I'm going to actually try. And I just reverse engineered it. Right. And I was like, okay, so my average agent's 10 grand a month. If I want to get to 100 by the end of the year, I need to add 8 agents per month, right? The right business. That's 2 a week. So then going to the other side of it, how many interviews I need to do a week to get to where I'm getting, getting 10 new contracts a week. Worst case scenario, 10 contracts a week. I'll get 2 of them to issue business every week. So it allowed me to reverse engineer everything from the beginning. And what was cool about that is we didn't get to like 100 agents by the end of the year. We were at like 89 or something like that. But I didn't account for all the people that wrote way more business. And I didn't account for all the people that recruited people along the way too.
Yeah.
But I think if that's your goal, is like, let me get to a business from doing $1 million a month. If you only have 10% override on $1 million a month, that's 100 grand a month in override income, right? It's a lot of money. And probably you should have more than 10%. Like when we were doing that much, I probably had an average of 25 or 30% override on everybody, right? Across the whole group. But just reverse engineer it to hit your goal. And then what will happen is if you try to stick to that. So that was our thing, dude, for that whole year, is like, how do we get 2 new issue paid writers every single week? And what you won't account for is you're going to have someone in there who's a stud and goes, okay, cool. And they're going to recruit 30 people. And then you're going to have another one who's a stud that recruits 10 people. And as long as you keep doing your deal, hiring people direct to you, working with them, teaching them how to sell, then you'll make a ton of money. But I think a lot of people overestimate how much they can accomplish in a year and underestimate what they can accomplish in like a week, So you get a lot of shit done in a week, but you just have to be very consistent and just get the very small things done. So for me, I was like, I need to do 30 interviews a week. 30 interviews a week will give me, 20 people that I can get into class. We'll get around 10 contracts per week out of that. Out of the 10 contracts per week, I sucked getting people started. But even if I had 10 a week, if I couldn't get 2 started, like I had no business doing this, right? And some weeks it'd be a lot more, it'd be 5 or 6. Some weeks it'd be a little bit worse. But I was like, those are the bare minimum numbers to make sure that we can scale this the way I want to scale it.
I love it. Here's what we're going to end with.
Yep.
27. You got a 1-week-old daughter.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty cool. How's it feel?
Feels crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy because you probably remember this. I didn't ever think I necessarily wanted to have kids. And then, and I don't know, dude. I just watched how much, and dude, I love my dad. Like I'm close to my dad, but he worked a lot. Like he was always gone. And I was like, I don't always want to be gone. I want to be at everything if I ever have kids. And then once I had the opportunity to where I'm like, I went to every doctor's appointment with Deb. Like it was taking a week off of work where I have a lot of good people in place. Like you helped a lot, but my staff was great. I have other managers in my group that took over. No one was bothering me when I was at the hospital with my baby. And that's what I wanted. So, dude, I think without this industry, I don't think I would have ever had kids, to be totally honest with you. So it feels crazy in that way.
Yeah. I wonder what it's like, dude. I know at 27, first of all, at 27, I had 4.
Yeah.
And I was making 28 grand a year, dude.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you were telling me earlier, I'm going to share your business a little bit. You're like, dude, we're hiring a full-time nanny next week.
Yeah.
Take it. You know what I mean? Like, that's going to feel pretty cool, dude. And I don't know if you have anything to compare to because it's your first. Yeah. But I'm sure you have a lot of friends that you went to school with that have kids that they're probably going to grow up different than yours.
Yeah, I think that part's is really cool because like the other part of it was I always wanted my wife to be able to pursue her dreams, and she's in medical school still and she can do her thing because we can afford to, like, so we have a place out in Vegas still, and she's doing a rotation out there for the month. And like when we hired someone, it was like, hey, you need to be able to travel with us like for a month. And she's like, well, it's not gonna be cheap. I'm like, that's okay. We need someone to be able to come with us for a month. Yeah. So like being able to do stuff like that means a lot to me because, and it made all the hard work worth it. Because like when I started really getting after this thing, I'm like, if I ever do want to have kids or do anything like that, I want to be able to do it the way I want to do it, which sounds kind of selfish, I guess. But I'm like, if I want to travel and go to like a trip to Europe or whatever, like I want to go with my wife and then bring someone with us so I don't have to deal with the kids all day long, right? So I just like all the 80-hour weeks leading up to this, it makes it feel worth it right now.
Yeah, I love it, dude. It's fun to watch. I like being a little piece of it.
Yeah.
You know, it's been cool to watch your journey and see it's like, I don't know, man, where you go, like, you talk about people that stand out. You know what I mean? At that time you stood out and I'd have never seen this coming ever. I don't know what you saw. I know you didn't see this,
Definitely not.
you know, and some of the stuff we talk about doing together going forward, I'm like, this is going to get nuts from a meeting in Charleston. You know what I mean? If you
Yeah.
didn't decide to go, I didn't just, who knows what, it's just crazy how the dots connect over time. So, been fun, dude. Appreciate everything you're doing for the team and the company and or us, you know, and, appreciate you taking your time to share, dude. So
I appreciate you, dude, because I know I was just some kid that was going to go to medical school. His dad wanted to go to medical school, and I had a big chip on
yeah,
my shoulder and just had something to prove. And I just need someone to give me a shot. So
yeah,
I'm glad it worked out the way it did. It's been a lot of fun, and hopefully this helps someone out today. But
yeah,
I
no
do want
doubt.
to reiterate that, like, someone asked me the other day, "Hey, was it all worth it?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, it was all worth it. I would do it all again because it was a blast, and the feeling right now makes it worth it." So if
Yeah,
you're wondering, it's like, dude, just don't be a punk. Just go do it. It's totally worth it if you make the other side of it. And I just can't reiterate that enough because I've heard other people say, I don't know if I'd do it all again. Dude, I would start over tomorrow again in a heartbeat because it was a freaking blast. It was a lot of hard work, but it was so much fun. So I would definitely do it again.
I agree. It's crazy. We're still doing a lot, but now we
Yeah.
get to choose the time when we do it. Actually, it's just being real, dude. It's 11:07 p.m. here where I'm recording. I
Yeah.
just got home from a flight and I have to get up at 5 a.m. to go on another flight.
It's
And we're
voluntary.
bringing this to you. You know what I mean? Like, but
Yeah.
we love this stuff, dude. So appreciate you guys. If we can help at all, let us know.
Thanks, man. See you guys.
All right, dude. Later.